My name is Robert Stolzberg. I am an admissions counselor at Western. I've done a handful of sessions here this week, so I may or may not be a familiar name and face to you. What I do as an admissions counselor is obviously I'm one of the people who helps you all out with the application process, tells you about Western, things like that, right? That's why I'm here. An important thing to know about what I do at Western as well, though, is when you apply to Western, when you submit an application, I am one of the people who reads and reviews your application. I'm on the committees that make admissions and scholarship decisions. When you submit an application to Western, including your application essay, which is what we're going to be talking about here today, that is also a scholarship application. So we'll be talking about that as well. But I want you all to understand what my role in the process is and how I can be a resource for you. If you are from Alaska, Oregon, or Southwest Washington, I am specifically your admissions counselor. I'm going to be the person working most closely with your application. If you're not from one of those areas, we will at the end have information about how to get in touch with your specific admissions counselor, though you are certainly always welcome to be in touch with me as well. A little bit about myself personally. I am a graduate of Western Washington University. I graduated in 2014. I double majored in Spanish and linguistics. I minored in teaching English as a second language. I ended up following that route. I spent a couple of years living in Spain, working as an English as a second language teacher at an elementary school. And I've been working in admissions at Western for about 4 years. I'm not originally from Washington. I grew up in Fairbanks, Alaska, from birth all the way until it was time for me to leave home for college. So if anyone wants to chat later, about being an out-of-state student, about going far away from home for college, I always really enjoy talking about that as well. Yeah, like I said, today we're here to talk about the application essay. I am joined in the chat by my colleague, Marshana Williams, who I do have to make a panelist here. She's been promoted to panelist. I'm joined in the chat by my colleague, Marshana Williams, who is going to be helping us out in the chat and answering some of your questions. So as you all can see, there is a chat feature. Feel free to share your questions in there. There's a lot of us here. I may or may not get to all of the questions. Marshana may or may not get to all of the questions. But like I said, there'll be ample opportunity to be in touch with us, at the end of the presentation. So yeah, share any and all questions you have. Don't worry about interrupting me. We'll get as many questions answered as we can. So enough on that. We're gonna go ahead and get started. Looks like folks have stopped coming in. So just a quick recap for everyone who just showed up. What's important to know about me is my name's Robert. I'm an admissions counselor. And part of what that means is that I will be reviewing your essay for admission and scholarships. So when we're talking about the essay, when we're talking about what it is that we're looking for, know where that's coming from as someone who works directly with that. So very broadly speaking, within the application process, what do we look for? We do what's called a holistic application review at Western. And that means that while we do certainly seriously consider your academic record, your GPA, your grades, the sorts of courses that you're taking, that sort of thing, we also look just as much as what you do outside of the classroom and what your non-academic life looks like. And that's a big reason why we require the application essay, because we want to know something about you outside of the classroom. So some of those big things that we look at, like I mentioned, there's academic performance. We also like to see contributions to community, any achievements or diverse experiences that you've had. And we'll kind of refer back to this as we go throughout this presentation and talk about, how can you actually make these things come across in your essay, right? Because it's one thing for me to say, like, we want you to have achievements. Like, that is an incredibly vague and broad and almost bordering on helpful thing for me to tell you. So we're going to look more closely at how can you actually express those things on your college application, specifically in the essay, to be standing out in both the admissions and the scholarship process. So I like to start with small important details. If you're in there rolling your eyes thinking like this stuff is all really obvious and really like evident, that's good. That's where I want you to be. But we like to talk about these small details because not every student is always thinking about these. So starting with like the really, really simple basic stuff, proofread it, spell check it, even beyond spell check, like watch for there, it's, simple stuff like that. We also have a bullet point on there that says make sure that you put the name of the right school on there, which is like also a very obvious seeming thing. But every year we get essays that are really well written and really thoughtful. And at the end they say, and that's why I want to study at Washington State University. We get that a lot of you are going to be applying to multiple schools, and it's totally fine to use the same essay for multiple schools, as long as it's, relevant to what those schools are looking for in their essays. Just make sure that you put the right name of the school into the essay. So seems like a simple thing, seems pretty obvious. It happens every year. On our application, for those of you who haven't seen it, there is a box for you to put your essay in. Please do not write your essay in that box. Much stronger recommend writing your essay in Microsoft Word, in Google Docs, and then copy pasting it once you have written, revised, reviewed, and then are ready to submit the essay. And to that extent, talking about like revision and reviewing, try not to be the only person who reads your essay. I know depending what you write your essay about, like maybe there's stuff in there that like you don't want your parents to know about, or you aren't comfortable having a teacher see. But even if you have a sibling, a friend, another relative, or if it's your teacher, counselor, parent, guardian, the reason that it's important to have somebody else read your essay is, in part for the above stuff, right? It's another set of eyes to help you see spelling, grammar, clarity, things like that. But it's also really helpful to have somebody else read your writing. And this goes beyond just your college admissions essay. It's helpful to have somebody else read your writing because like what makes sense in my head and what seems reasonable on paper in my head might not actually read the same for somebody who's not living in my brain. And it can be really, really hard, even as a good writer, to be able to tell like, does what I just put down on paper make sense to another person who's not in my head? So we do really recommend having somebody else read your essay. Doesn't have to be a teacher, doesn't have to be someone involved in your school, totally can be. We do recommend having someone else take a look at it. And with all of this stuff, with these small details, right, you're not gonna get denied admission from Western because you misplaced a comma. You're not even gonna get denied admission from Western because you put the name of the wrong school. Like, we get it that nobody's perfect, but what we're really looking for is like, your overall presentation does matter in the admissions process and does matter on your application. And so if there are numerous errors, repeated errors, you're not necessarily showing a college level of writing ability, that kind of stuff does add up. So like if there is one stray comma in your essay, not a big deal. If there are 0 commas in your essay, then we might start to notice something like that. So overall presentation matters. And this is just a quick and easy way to make sure that you do well there. At Western, we have 3 different essay prompts. Getting on to what the essay can actually be about, you do not have to respond to all 3 of these prompts. You pick one. And so you all can read them here. You can see that they are pretty vague, right? Describe any activities related to diversity or multiculturalism, share a meaningful experience, or essay number 3, topic of your choice. Essay number 3, topic of your choice, is the most popular essay for students to write about. I would say, significantly over half of students who apply to Western choose to write the essay about the topic of their choice. So this is my favorite question that this brings up. If I can write my college essay about anything I want to, what should I write my college essay about? I think it's both simultaneously, for a lot of students, very exciting that they're not being painted into a corner by a pre-written prompt, but can also be like a little challenging or a little intimidating in the sense of like, well, if I can write about anything, then that doesn't really help me narrow things down. So getting into what I really want to talk about today, and what I think is going to be helpful for you all to hear today, is what makes a strong essay, independent of the topic, independent of the actual material that you're writing about, because that's going to look different for everyone. I will probably say this many times over during this presentation. Your college essay and your best friend's college essay and your classmates' college essay and your older siblings' college essay are all probably going to look pretty different because you've all had different experiences. You have different things that you think about, different careers that you're looking for, and that's totally fine, right? Remember what I talked about before with us having a holistic review process, that the whole point for this essay is we want to get to know you beyond the grades, beyond the test scores, beyond the GPA that we're already going to have from you. So being authentically yourself in a way that's, not going to be the same way that your best friend is authentically themselves or your older sibling is authentically themselves is normal and totally okay. So when I talk to students about writing a strong essay, I have 2 super secret insider essay tips that I always tell students. If you meet these 2 tips, you're going to have like best top 10% of essays, guaranteed. Doesn't matter what the essay is about. It's going to be a great essay if you follow these 2 tips. We will talk a little bit later about what the essay can and potentially should be about. That does matter. But when we're looking at what makes a strong essay, 2 things that we're really looking for. One is that your essay should be personal. We often get students who submit written works like works of fiction or something that's like a biography of somebody else, or something that's like a research paper that they might write for a class with a bibliography and citations. And all that stuff is great. And if you have something like that that you really want me to read, that you think is an important part of your college application process, feel free to email me your fiction writing or your poetry or your research paper, and I will attach it to your application, and we will consider it just as much as any other application materials. But for the essay that you are writing for your college admission, it should be personal. We want to know something about you. And it's important to use your own voice, right? We often tell students, especially like in a high school English classroom, I'm sure all of you have heard, don't use the first person, don't say I think, I feel, but it's okay to do that when you're writing your college essay. This is a little bit different than what you would write for, for a class, for your English class, your history class, or what have you. So it's okay to be yourself, okay to use that first person language. You can be a little bit informal if that's what you're going for. As long as it's your voice, that's really what we are looking for. First bullet point there, telling us, tell us something that we're not going to see on your transcript. Like, right, your essay can totally be about academics, but your essay shouldn't be, this is what my GPA was and these are what my test scores were. Or if it's something we're going to see on your activities list, right? There's already a space in your application to talk about being in French club or being on the soccer team. So your essay can totally be about those things, but go beyond, right? Go beyond saying, this is what I did and this is when I did it, because that's already expressed on your activities list, right? Tell us next level, tell us what it means to you. Why is this experience important? We'll get into how to express that in a little bit. And when I say that your essay should be personal, that doesn't mean that it can only be about yourself, just that you should be involved in it. You can write your essay about your soccer team or about your favorite book or about your dog. But if you're going to write your essay about your dog, I want to hear something like, I have a dog, his name is Rover. As a pet owner, these are the responsibilities that I take on. And because of my experience owning a dog, I know that I want to be a vet. And that's why I want to go to college. That's why I want to go to Western, so I can go to veterinary school and help take care of other people's dogs as they get older. That's a really good essay about your dog, because that is telling us something significant about you as well. We had a question in the chat about if we read letters of recommendation. Marshana already answered that. They're not required. They are optional. We do read them. Question from Joshua: where should we attach the letter of recommendation on our application? You can either put it as an additional page on your activities list, but what most students do, and what's a little bit easier for us, is either to email it directly to your admissions counselor or to the general Western Washington admissions email, or have the person who wrote the letter of recommendation do that for you. Good question, Joshua. Marshana put the email in there. Thank you, Marshana. So, like I said, an essay about your dog that tells us, I want to be a vet, these are the responsibilities I take on, that's a good essay about your dog. If you write an essay about your dog that goes a little something like, I have a dog, his name is Rover, he likes to play fetch, he's a very good boy, and here's a picture of Rover, I would enjoy reading that essay, but that's not a good essay for your college application, because you've just told us all about your dog, but we don't know something about you. So hopefully that distinction is clear, right? Write about your dog, write about your D&D group, write about snowboarding, like whatever's important to you, we definitely want you to be able to express that. Just make sure that you're tying it back into us learning something personal about you. So big insider tip number 1, make it personal. Big insider tip number 2, your essay should answer the fundamental question, what about me will make me successful at Western? With everything that we are asking you for in the college application, your grades, your senior schedule, your activities, all of this, the whole college application process exists because universities are trying to answer the question, who are the students who are going to be successful here? That can be success in the classroom as an outstanding student, success as an involved member of the community, success in the sense of like pursuing a career after Western and something that you're passionate about and a difference you're passionate about making in the world. It doesn't just have to be academic. Totally can, but it doesn't have to be. But as long as you answer that question, what about me will make me successful at Western? That will help your essay stand out, right? You could be the academic superstar, and that can be a great thing to write about. Just make sure that you're not just summarizing your transcript, that you're giving us something new and something personal. Maybe you're really involved in your community in a way that's significant to you, and that shows what kind of involvement you are going to bring to Western. Maybe like the example with the dog, right? You're one of those people, like since you were 5 years old, you've known you want to be a vet, you've known you want to be an engineer. That can be a really good way to say like, hey, I'm motivated in this way, and this is how I'm going to be successful at Western. And finally, I think we tell people, and I think we particularly tell young people, that they shouldn't talk themselves up and that they shouldn't brag about themselves. This is like far beyond just the college admissions process, but it is okay to brag. We kind of want that. We want you to tell us like, hey, I'm awesome. You should want me as a student at Western. Like, get me in here ASAP. Get me a scholarship. You don't have to be that direct about it. Totally can if you want to. I'm fine with that. But like really talk yourself up. This is the space for it. This is where you get to brag about yourself. I'd like to share just a little example of how kind of outside a box a good essay can be. I want to tell you about one of my favorite essays that I read last year. It was an essay from a student who lived in a pretty rural part of Washington and grew up on a farm. And they wrote their essay about the family's cows getting out while their parents were away. And this student and their younger sibling had to go get the cows back in. The essay actually started, the cows are out. And if they had just written this essay about the cows getting out and then getting the cows back in, I would have enjoyed reading it again. But what really made this essay stand out was that the student was able to say, like, I have a different upbringing than a lot of people because I grew up on a farm. This is an example of a time where I had to solve a problem that I didn't feel prepared for. I had to do it really autonomously because my parents weren't there. I take on a lot of responsibility as a young person, and that's given me the skill set to know that when college is hard or when it's unpredictable or when I have to do something new for the first time, that I'm going to be prepared to do it, and that's how I'm going to be successful at Western. It was also a really well-written essay. It was very descriptive. It made me laugh, didn't make me cry, made me think. But really when it got down to it, the fact that I enjoyed reading the essay personally was less important than that the student was really clearly able to articulate why this experience mattered and how it's going to benefit them moving forward. So I like to share that example because I think a lot of students think that we are looking for someone writing about being a great student or being a leader or being involved in multiculturalism. And a lot of students will write about that, and that's definitely a good thing to write about. But if that doesn't speak to you, if that doesn't come to like, hey, this is an important part of who I am, write about the cows getting out, write about snowboarding. Just make sure that you're following these 2 tips, make it personal, tell us why you're going to be successful at Western. We have a question for the maximum word count for the essay. You will see listed that we're looking for about 500 words. If you need to go a little bit over that to tell your story, totally fine. I'm not even going to count. I probably won't notice. If you get to a point where you're like way over, like if you're at 1,000 words, or beyond a page and a half, like Marshana says, try and cut that down a little bit. Show us that you can say something significant in a smaller space, because that's a skill set that you're going to have to use in college. But yeah, if you're a little bit over 500, like don't stress it. It's not a hard deadline. So at this point in the presentation, I'm calling it Let's Play Some Hits. I want to talk a little bit more in depth about some common essay topics and how you can write a really outstanding version of that essay. There's 4, there may be more, but I came up with 4 sort of broad categories of essays that I see a lot of students write in this now my 4th year doing this at Western. And so if we were all here in person, we might do like a little hot potato or a little round table and say like, hey, what are we thinking about writing our college essays about? Have we done this for an English class? Obviously, this is a different sort of format, but I want to give us the same sort of brainstorming environment of like, hey, this is some stuff you could write your essay about. That picture is also a nice little reminder of, that is Lawnstock. That's a music festival that we hold on campus, and hopefully we'll be getting back to soon. Because like, hey, remember gatherings? Okay, so common college essay topic number 1. We've talked about this one a little bit. I want to be a blank when I grow up, right? That's the example with your dog. You want to be a vet. Your dog is the way that you tell the story about how you want to be a vet. So it can be a future career. You don't have to know your career. Like if you know that you're really into studying astronomy and you don't know what you're going to do with it, that's totally fine as well, right? Tell us like, hey, I know Western's got a great astronomy program. I know Western has a great marine biology program. What am I going to do with that? I don't know. I'm 17. But you can tell us still that that's what you're passionate about studying. That's a great essay. Or a problem you want to solve. This is how when I work with younger students, I really encourage them to think about what they want to be when they grow up in this way. Not necessarily what do I want to do as a career? How do I want to exchange my labor for money so that I can buy goods and services? But what are the problems that you see in your community or in the world that you would like to solve? Even if you don't know what major goes with that or what career goes with that, that is a great version of this essay. as well. So a few tips for writing the I want to be a blank when I grow up essay. Don't just tell us what you want to do, but also tell us why. This is something that will kind of come up in a lot of the different types of essays that students can write about. But I think this is the area where it comes up the most, where you could write a wonderful page-long essay about wanting to be a teacher. And that's a good essay. That will probably get you places. But if you leave out the why you want to be a teacher, we are still missing like something personal from you and a way to get to know you. So I call this the so what, and I don't mean so what in like a so what, like a kind of aggro way, but more of like, okay, this is the what. The what is I want to be a teacher. What's the so what? What's that next level of why this is important to me? That's how we get to know you. Okay. If you do have this defined career path of being a doctor or a lawyer or an admissions counselor, what have you, tell us a little bit about why Western is the right place for you. That shows us that you've put some time and effort into seeing that like, oh yeah, like it is worth applying to this university. It also helps show us though that you're someone who is going to be successful here, right? It comes back to that second point of how are you going to be successful at Western. So for example, you want to study marine biology and you talk in your essay about, I know you guys have the Shannon Point Marine Center, and I think it's really great to have the opportunity to do all this hands-on stuff in addition to the lab work that I'm going to do on campus. That shows us that like you are preparing well for college because you know what you're getting into. And then finally, the last piece, right? Why will you be successful in college? That's something I'm coming back to over and over again. The I want to be blank when I grow up essay is probably the area that I most see students not making this connection, right? And it can be a pretty simple one to make, right? Like I've always wanted to know, I've always known I wanted to be a doctor since I was a little kid, and I'm going to be successful at Western because I have this thing motivating me. Like that's totally enough. That shows that you've thought a little bit about it and that you're prepared coming into college. So that's the I want to be blank when I grow up. I have a question from Felix. Are you looking for a professional writing style or an essay written in a story style work? Like Marshana says, important to keep your own voice. So if you can do a story style, but keep it in your own voice and tell us something about you, that's totally fine. I've had students submit essays that are written in the third person with themselves as the main character. As long as you're clear about explaining that like that's what's going on and it's not just an essay about someone named Felix that like we don't know is you, totally fine. But yeah, as Marshana said, that can be kind of a tricky balance to keep. So that's an instance where it's really good idea to have someone else take a look at that essay, which y'all should be doing. Anyway, okay, essay number 2, I overcame adversity. Be a sports injury, parents got divorced and that was hard. Trouble with a teacher. There was a global pandemic that started your junior year. I expect to read a lot of COVID essays this year, or like anything else, like any other like shit happens moment that can happen in your life. That can be a fine essay to write. One thing I want to hopefully be clear about with this type of essays, I think I hear from a lot of students who are like, hey, I don't have a traumatic life event to write my college essay about. And in that instance, like write it about something else. But I think there's sort of this like misconception that colleges are specifically looking to hear about your trauma. And if you have that, and that's something that you're comfortable sharing, by all means, write your essay about that. But don't feel like just because you have trauma, that is something that you are required to share with us. On the bullet points for how to stand out, right, sort of the caveat for that is if you are writing your essay about something hard or traumatic or some sort of adversity that you overcame, and that has impacted your grades or the classes that you've been able to take or anything that we're going to see on your transcript, I really encourage you to tell us about that either in your essay or in the optional supplemental tell us more section. The reason for that is like if you were sick and you missed class and you got bad grades, or your parents got divorced and it was hard at home and you weren't getting your homework done, that is not a reflection on you as a student. But if we see a transcript with a big drop in grades and we don't have that context, we don't have a way to fairly evaluate that. So share what you're comfortable sharing, but just know that the more information, kind of the better in this case. Bullet point number 2, tell us what you'll take away from the experience, right? We hear from a lot of students like, hey, I had a really bad sports injury and I rehabbed and came back and got to play volleyball my senior year. And then they kind of end with that. And what we're really looking for there is like, what are you taking away from that experience, right? Is it this experience made you want to go into sports medicine yourself? Did this, give you the ability to know that like when things are hard, you can keep going? Did this teach you patience? right? It's like the previous slide we talked about, like there's the what and then there's the so what. So make sure that you're including the so what here as well. Next bullet point, and I want to be really clear, this is not applicable to everything. Like if you get hit by a car, we're not looking for you to own up to any mistakes. If the pandemic hit you hard, there's not any mistakes that we're looking for you to own up. But for example, if you had trouble with a teacher, right? That's a fairly common essay kind of subgenre there. And it's always genuinely very impressive to me when a student says like, I had trouble with this teacher. They did this, that, and the other thing, but here's what I could have done better. Here's my ownership of, even if it was like 90% their fault and 10% my fault, let me take ownership of the 10% that I could have done better. That is genuinely a very impressive thing to see from someone from any age, right? Like people your age, people my age, people our parents' ages, anyone who's taking ownership for like their 10% of a hard situation. So it's not necessarily going to be applicable to every essay, right? Like if you got sick and missed a lot of school, I'm not looking for you to like say what you did wrong because you probably didn't do anything wrong. But if it is applicable, taking ownership of like something that you consider to have been a mistake is really, really powerful and shows a lot of good qualities about yourself. And like I said, share as much as you're comfortable with. I do often have students who ask me like, hey, I have like a pretty heavy essay that I want to write. Are y'all going to be cool in the office? Like, is there a point that you're going to say like too much information? Genuinely from us, there is no such thing as too much information. If we read an essay that's like really hard or like a major situation, I'll like get up and take a walk and drink some water. But like really genuinely, as much as you are comfortable sharing, there's no amount that is too much. So share as much as you're comfortable. Just know that, more is going to help you out if it's something that's affected your academics. So that's the I overcame adversity essay. This genre of essay, the third of 4, I like to call I did a thing. Remember back at the start, we talked about we like to see your achievements, whether it's academic or otherwise. This is where you can make that come across, right? The academic superstar that we talked about earlier, any sorts of awards or recognition in your school or community or sports teams. Maybe you volunteered or you went abroad with a church group or you did a long backpacking trip with your Boy Scout or Girl Scout troop or had some other sort of adventure, right? This is the like narrative, here's something that I did and it's like cool and impressive, or here's something that I accomplished and it shows how awesome I am, right? Pretty common sort of thing to write about, very broad category. So tell us what you did, tell us how you did it, tell us why it matters. That's a little bit of the so what. So like, if you're a state champion runner, right? Like tell us that you won state, brag about it, tell us your time, like you're awesome. But also tell us what led up to that, right? Like how was it training? What did you put into it? Did you have to make any sacrifices for that? Tell us the whole journey. Don't just tell us about the destination. And then why does it matter? It's that so what piece. I learned how to be tenacious. I learned how to not give up on my dreams, et cetera, et cetera. Next one, kind of the same extent, like tell us what you'll take away from the experience. Like you were a state champion runner in high school. How are you taking that experience with you to college to be successful in whatever way you are going to be successful in college? And finally, like I mentioned before, brag, brag, brag. We want to hear that you think that you're awesome and that we should think that you are awesome as well. Fourth common type of essay is the this is who I am essay. Whether it's a social identity, part of your culture, religion, ethnicity, race, sexual orientation, gender identity. If there is something that is very important to you about who you are, if you are involved in any of these communities, even if you are not necessarily a member of said communities, that can be a great one as well. Any values you have, or if you have something important to say about your family. Basically, this is the when I say that we are looking to get to know you as a person, this is the essay that takes that to the highest level of the essay just being about who you are as a person. And that can be a really strong essay. But some tips. It's important to be yourself and use your voice no matter what essay you're writing. But if you are writing a this is who I am type essay, it is even more important to be just as very authentically you as possible. And I think if you're the kind of person who's writing a this is who I am essay, this is something that should, probably come, if not easily to you, be something that you can work towards. Because in the other essays, if you write about your dog or about your gold medal or about the long backpacking trip you did, you've kind of got a co-star there. If you write a this is who I am essay, you are the star of the show. So just really be sure that you are being yourself. we'd love to hear about if you see your community at Western, right? Maybe you see that there are a lot of people like you at Western and you're really excited to dive in and be part of that community. Or maybe you're from a background or an identity or a faith tradition that you don't see represented at Western, and you say, I don't see this community at Western. I know there are 16,000 students at Western, and so there are other students like me. I want to come in and build that community from the ground up. Either way is fine. We just really like to see, how you see yourself fitting in at Western if you're writing your essay about yourself in this way. And then finally, we have a scholarship program called the Multicultural Achievement Program. And that's one that I like to shout out because that's a really good fit for a lot of students who are writing this type of essay. And what we're looking for with the Multicultural Achievement Program is students who have sustained involvement in diversity or multiculturalism related activities within their community. Within their community is kind of a key point there, right? If you went abroad and had a really good experience there and then came back home, that can be a really good essay. Not necessarily something that we're looking for this particular scholarship. So if that kind of sets off a light bulb in your head and like, hey, I'm really involved in my synagogue or, in a dance troupe from my culture, or I volunteer, with a multicultural or diversity related activity, know that this essay in particular can really go towards that scholarship. So if you're interested in that and need any more specific information, this is certainly something you can contact me about. But if you're writing a This Is Who I Am essay, it's a good scholarship to be aware of. There's not anything additional that you have to fill out on the application. You'll be considered for it when your application is reviewed for admission. Okay, so couple last words that I really want to leave you all with before we wrap up here is one of the best things you can do, whether it's the essay or something else, one of the best things you can be doing right now to be successful in the college application process is to be in touch with the universities you're interested in and be in touch with the specific admissions people there. You're here and listening to my presentation, so you're obviously already doing that. So kudos to you. On the essay front, one thing that we are able to do to help you with the essay process is myself and our other admissions counselors are happy to review your essay before you submit your application for admission. So I would ask that all, 50, 100 plus of you don't all send them to me. There's a link that Marshana just shared in the chat where you can find who your specific admissions counselor is, whether it's myself, Jacob, Julia, Marshana, Tina, or Freddie. As you see on the slide here, it's based on geography, so you just put in where you go to school and it'll tell you who your counselor is. But we are happy to review your essay with you and kind of workshop with it with you before you submit it for admission. 2 caveats on that. One, we're not going to be your grammar checker. We're happy to tell you like, hey, you've got a lot of comma splices here, or hey, watch your capitalization, but we're not going to go through with the red pen and get every error for you. The second thing is the application deadline to Western is January 31st. If you are interested in having someone on the inside review your essay and give you feedback before you officially submit it, don't wait until the last week before that January 31st deadline. We get about 1/3 of our applications in that 1 week before the deadline. So get on it early. You are here in this presentation listening to me. That tells me that you are both on it early and you are someone who is interested in writing a good essay. So take advantage of that. We are here to help. We are resources. We are real people behind the camera here. And we're happy to help you out in that way. Kind of last word on the essay, when you get to your college applications, they're asking you for a lot of stuff, right? Some are still asking for standardized tests. They're all gonna ask for your transcripts. Most are gonna ask for an activities list, your senior schedule. Some require recommendations. In my mind and in my experience, the essay is the #1 thing that you can do as a senior in high school to improve your chances of being admitted to the university you want to go to and improve your scholarship chances. The academics are important, but you're already mostly done with high school. So most of your grades are in the past. The activities list is important, but once again, you're mostly done with high school. Most of those activities are going to be things that you have already done. So the college essay is really the only thing that you are starting from scratch as part of your college application. Question in the chat. I think it got addressed in the chat earlier, but I know there's been a lot of questions in there. So just to address it here on camera, we are not requiring SAT or ACT scores for seniors, class of 2021. A lot of folks don't have access to those, so we waived that requirement for this year. If you have them, feel free to submit them, not a requirement for admission or scholarship. So that is, last thing that I want to leave you with. Like I said, please be in touch with us if there's anything we can do to help. Please save that link that Marshana sent for seeing who is your admissions counselor. And yeah, you're going to do great in the process, and I'm really excited to see all of your essays. Couple questions in the chat that I'm going to get to before we close out here. College and high school running start transcripts. You will eventually need to submit those. They're not required in the application as official transcripts, as long as those classes show up on your high school transcript. However, we will eventually need the official transcripts for you to get the credit that you're getting through Running Start in college and high school. So when you apply, if your Running Start grades are represented on your high school transcript, that's fine for now, but it's also a good idea to just send them in because we will eventually ask for that. So that's the end of the essay information that I have for you guys. Like I said, please be in touch if you want to go over this stuff again or just want to reach out and say hi. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you all have a great night.